This is Big Podcast.
In Nashville.
It's Build a Big Podcast, the marketing podcast for podcasters. I'm talking about growing your podcast, attracting the audience that you want, getting money from that audience, spreading a message, changing lives, making impact with your podcast. You want more from me? BigPodcast.com is the website. On this episode, I'm talking about your number one dream guest. I'm going to take you back on this one. 2005, it seems like forever ago. I started a broadcast radio show. I was in the music industry at the time, and that's what the show's about. It still exists. It's called Music Business Radio. It is about the music business. I interview artists, producers, record label executives. If you're in the music business, I'm talking to people like you. It's a weekly show, and it's taped. When we started, we really didn't know what the format was going to be. I thought I knew what it was going to be. It's like Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan till you get punched in the face. So that format, it changes over the first few episodes. You probably experienced that with your own podcast. We wanted to get a few shows in the can before actually airing the first one. Because with the weekly show, you never know if something's going to come up, especially when you're dealing with guests. I got to cancel. This thing didn't work out like we thought it was going to be. Anyway, we wanted a few in the can. And one of the first things that we did was we put together a list of potential guests. And these lists fell into two categories. One, people that we knew would say yes to this because it was unproven. We'd say, hey, you want to be on this show? They say, yeah, what show? Well, it hadn't aired yet. Again, we're figuring out the format. We couldn't really tell them about it. Well, just come in and take a chance on it. So we went with people we knew and people we knew that would be good talkers because at the time, I was more or less new to it. I had done music radio, coming in and out of records, giving it time or something. But what I had not done was a long format interview show. I didn't know if I was going to get through an hour worth of talking. So I wanted to get people in there that I knew they could help me with that. The second list that we came up with were people that we didn't know and people that we wanted, dream guests, I'll call them. And my top person, Dolly Parton. That may seem funny to somebody who's outside of the music industry. She's kind of a caricature and laughs at herself. She does a good job with that. But the reason I wanted her wasn't because of that. It wasn't because I thought she would be a fun interview. The reason I wanted her was for two reasons. One, it's music business radio. And what you may not know about Dolly is that she owns her stuff. She owns it all. She is the writer. She is the publisher, record label. She owns everything. She's got licensing deals, Dollywood in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, Pigeon Forge, right outside of Gatlinburg. She's done so much for her community. She's done a lot for Tennessee. She's got something called Imagination Library. And to date, this is current right now, 213 million books have been sent to children around the world with Imagination Library. She comes from one of the poorest counties in Tennessee. She gives scholarships to the kids in her county. I mean, she's done so much good work. Some of it people know about. Some of it, it's not that known. I wanted to get into it with her and ask her about it. I've got a bio here. This is on 12-point type. It is single-spaced. It fills an entire page. Let me give you a couple of the highlights. She was recently inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She's had 27 certified gold, platinum, and multi-platinum awards. That's a gold, platinum, multi-platinum record. She's had 26 songs reach number one on Billboard's country charts. Galantis, do you know this band? The dance band. She partnered with those guys for a big dance hit. Her latest single was a duet with Rob Halford from Judas Priest. Kenny Rogers, Islands in the Stream. I mean, she's done a lot of work with other artists. She's done a lot of cross-genre work. And she's been doing it for 50-something years. A long, long time. So that is why she's at the top of my list. I'm not exaggerating to say that Dolly is right down the street from me. We are literally on the same street. I can walk to her office in under 10 minutes. But it's not like you can just walk through the front door and see her. She's probably not there. This woman is touring, recording, writing all the time. The only reason that I've ever known that she's in the neighborhood, and I've been here a long time, is that one time she was in a car accident. Somebody hit Dolly Parton. Can you imagine that? You had a black SUV with tinted windows. Dolly pops out of the back. You're like, what? It's Dolly Parton. I'm in a wreck with her. It wasn't her. Somebody was driving her. She doesn't drive herself. Come on. But low profile. You're not exactly going to see her. You can't exactly walk into her office. But that's not a thing. I mean, we're connected. We're not just people off the street. The station that I produce my show with, it is the number one AAA station in the country, and it has been that number one station for 8 years. My producer used to work for Reba McEntire. We've got friends of the show that know her. For example, I know her sister. I know the host and one of the engineers from her podcast. But again, Dolly's busy. And the big issue is when I reach out to her, and I have reached out to her over the last 18 years, I'm competing with media outlets like Rolling Stone, The Today Show, who knows? Big outlets, the biggest of the big. But it hasn't kept me from trying. Again, number one dream guest, man. You got to go for those. Anyway, yesterday I get this text from my producer. Finally, Dolly Parton opportunity. You got an opportunity to interview her for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. More on that in a second. See my email. I know Dan, and Dan was my original engineer. Dan's already setting something up with her for a regular interview on Lightning, which is the station that I mentioned. So combine this. I've got 10. Dan's got 10, or I'm assuming 10. Sometimes it's a little bit weird. I'll explain that here in a second. But this is an opportunity for us to grab something from Music Business Radio. And I said, fuck yeah. My engineer was on that text. Producer writes back. He said, let me know when you guys can do it and I'll finalize. And basically I was like, I'm going to go anywhere, anytime, wherever. I've talked about that here on this show before. Dolly is the one person that I would interview with 2 tin cans and a string. So anyway, long story short, it is scheduled. Number one dream guest. Going to interview her in 5 days. She reached out to us, by the way, not her people. I'm going to bring you in behind the scenes of how this works because there's probably somebody in your genre, your niche, who speaks about the topic that you speak about that you are interested in getting. I think as far as the timing goes, it was just luck of the draw. There's a huge push right now for her new album and book. That helped a lot. Situation isn't perfect. Like I said, I got probably 10 minutes with her. That's part of a larger media day that sometimes happens on national press campaigns. She'll be doing something with me. 10 minutes later, she's doing something with the station in Los Angeles. 10 minutes later, she's doing something with the station in New York. That's the way that it works. Now, whether I have 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 15 or 20, some of it is going to depend on what the guy before me does and what the guy after me does. If they can't connect and I'm going, maybe they're going to let me stay on a little bit longer. It's one foot in the door. It's not perfect, but I will say this. It is nice to be recognized. After going to her, and we didn't go directly to her. Well, I did on Twitter. You think she's actually reading her tweets? I doubt it. But we've been through her people, and it's just not good timing, you know. Again, she's touring, she's writing, she's recording. A lot of artists, they will come through playing a show. And sometimes we get hooked up with them, sometimes we don't. A lot of guys don't do media the day of show. They're resting up for the show. I mean, they've got ups and downs, what I call the pulse. They want to put all their energy into the show and they rest, or they've got people they need to see, not just us. A lot of people who aren't on the come up, and that's Dolly Parton. I mean, she's doing media. This is how she's a legend. She's still doing it, but she doesn't need to do it at the level that she used to. Those are many of the people that I speak to, and they're just not that easy to get with. Dolly's 77. She's like, yeah, whatever, you know? I don't need to do this. She's not going to do anything that she doesn't want to do. I'm going to be back with another episode once this is over. I'm going to let you know more of the behind the scenes of this, how we do it, what we do with the content that we get. Again, Dan, former engineer, now guy that I work with, he is also doing an interview with her. Can we put these things together? I don't know. We're going to try to do that. I'm going to talk more about these media days. Similar things happen all the time. I've done a few of them. When you participate in one, and you can, as a podcaster, get access to these, it can give you access to somebody that you might not have been able to get with otherwise. You do have to be organized. You've got 10 minutes or however much they're giving you. And once you connect, boom, it is on. That clock is ticking. I'm going to play the behind the scenes for you. I'm going to let you know how I get rapport, how I get in, how I get out of it, how I get any kind of liners. You're going to hear it, good, bad, and ugly. That's going to come up. I'll be talking more about how to take just a few minutes and make an entire episode out of it. First things first, we got to get it done. I got the login info for the remote session. I've got an advanced copy of the book, a watermarked version of the album. Can't play it for you. It's tracked back to me. They're going to know if I release it. Anyway, they're serious. They got it booked, but until it's done, you just don't know if it's going to happen. Because a lot of things happen, even during the interview. When I talk about 10 minutes, again, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 15, who knows? Like I said, that's depending on who's before me, who's after me. It's going to depend on our tech working, her tech working. But I love these things. I'm going to bring you along for the ride on this one because with such little time, I mean, it really is exciting. There's some kind of cool energy about it. You've got to get in and you've got to get what you need to do something with. I suppose I could just have her run liners. She'd do it, but she's there because she wants to talk about the new book. She wants to talk about the new album. I'm there because I want something my listeners can use. So you've got to work that, right? I'm not going to disrespect her. She's giving me her time. Yeah, we'll talk about the new book. We'll talk about the new album. That's important too. But there are also some questions that my listeners want. How am I going to do that? Well, we'll see. We'll see. Stay tuned. If you want thoughts on the planning, getting instant rapport, squeezing every bit of time you have with somebody, this is how to do it. You want to subscribe to this podcast. I make it easy for you. bigpodcast.com/subscribe. That is the subscribe page. The kids call it follow these days. I got 3 buttons for you, one for iPhone, one for Android. One is an RSS feed. And I've got a bonus QR code there. If you scan it, that's going to make it easy for you. Go straight to your phone, through the magic of the internet. Every episode of Build a Big Podcast is transferred to your phone in whichever way you're getting your podcast. The URL again, bigpodcast.com/subscribe. You want a little more? I've got a group coaching program for podcasters who are really serious. And these are the kind of things that we work with. And when I've got a connection that I can connect you with, I'm going to do it for you. Here's how to find out more information about it. It's bigpodcast.com/AMP. AMP. It stands for Audio Monetization Program. More info online, bigpodcast.com/AMP. Go there now before you forget. If it works for you, sign up. If you got questions, let me know. I'll see you there, and I'll see you here on the next episode of Build a Big Podcast.